I'd like to welcome everyone to the channel, The Journey with Tough Kinaman. And today's video is basically a presentation consisting of a combination of information that I've gathered from the internet and my personal experience as a caregiver and as a son of and for someone that has frontal temporal lobe dementia. I've witnessed my father go through many changes in the past 10 years because of dementia. And along the way, I've gathered quite a bit of information, and it has kind of changed my mind and molded who I am into the person that I am today. And I thought maybe this presentation might be something that you can relate to, or there's information that I will provide that could help you with your struggles and whatever you're going through with your loved one that has dementia. So let's not waste any more time. And this is about a 20-some page slideshow, so I'll go through somewhat quick, but try to highlight some of the finer points so you get the information that I want you to receive. But anyway, this is The Journey with Tough Kinaman, and the synopsis of this channel is it's a son's effort to raise awareness and share real-life experiences with the world, while my father, who's a U.S. Army veteran, Keene Jr., enters deeper into the many stages of frontal temporal lobe dementia. Now, the purpose of the creation behind, creating this video series was to help others, try to raise awareness and bring comfort into people's lives who are going through this horrible situation, this disease, this condition. There's still a lot of research taking place. There's no cure, and all we can do right now is just try to comfort one another, and basically that's the purpose of this video series, is to try to bring you comfort and put a smile on your face, bring a little bit of education, and maybe give you a different set of give you a whole different perspective on maybe how to approach your loved one who has dementia and what you can do to take care of them and how you yourself can deal with it as well. Caregivers go through a lot of stress, and many different feelings will overpower you, and it's important to know how to deal with that if you want to survive yourself, because it is very catastrophic and can really cause harm to the caregiver as well. Now let's talk about dementia, the word itself. Now, dementia is an umbrella term that describes a collection of symptoms that are caused by disorders affecting the brain. A lot of people will, and I have been this way before I understood that it's more than just a brain disorder. I used to think that it was a person had gone mad. They've gone insane. They just totally lost their mind, and I really never understood what it meant to have dementia. Well, that is until my father was diagnosed with it. Then I learned everything I thought it was. Well, it was not, I wasn't even close. And another thing is, a lot of people will first assume that it's just Alzheimer's, because that's the most popular one, and it's the most common type of dementia that people will hear. But it is not one specific disease. Dementia affects thinking, behavior, and the ability to perform everyday tasks, and brain function is affected enough to interfere with the person's normal social or working life. The most common types of dementia are Alzheimer's disease. Now, Alzheimer's disease is the most common, and it accounts for approximately 40 to 70% of all dementias. Your next would be is vascular dementia, and that accounts for 15 to 25% of all dementias. Then there's Lewy body, and that accounts for 2 to 20%. And then you have frontal temporal lobe dementia, which is the type that my father has, and that accounts for approximately 2 to 4% of all dementias. And of course, there are other dementias that there's so many. I'm not really going to get into that and talk about those, but they are associated with diseases such as Parkinson's and head trauma and alcohol related and stuff like that. But now the stages, the many different stages, there's 7 stages, and I've gone through so far with my father, I would say we're at stage 4, 5, and 6. He's predominantly in 5, but he is still in stages 4 and in a little bit of 6. So you can see how far gone or how deep into this that we are. And my father was diagnosed back in 2014, and he was 63 at the time. He was turning 64 just before his 64th birthday. He was diagnosed with frontal temporal lobe dementia, and that was at Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia. It was a very tough day, and it was a grim reality. It was an eye-opener for sure, I'll tell you that. Now let's get into the stages. Now, stage 1. Basically, stage 1, there's no dementia. There's no cognitive decline, and in this stage, this person functions normally and has no memory loss and is mentally healthy. People with no dementia would be considered to be in stage 1. And I can tell you firsthand, we saw no signs. There were no signs whatsoever. I thought my father was just basically growing older gracefully, and it would be that way until his time had come for him to pass. Well, things would soon escalate shortly after what we would call the normal stage. And that's when we would start to see some of the short-term memory loss, and that would be the stage 2, which we thought was just short-term memory loss as you get older. Well, it was actually a little deeper than that. So stage 2, there's still no dementia. Very mild cognitive decline. And in this stage, it's used to describe normal forgetfulness associated with aging. For example, forgetfulness of names and where familiar objects were left, and the symptoms are not evident to loved ones or the physician for that matter. So this one will fly under the radar, and again, like I said, it's basically you just think your father, your mother, whoever your loved one is just getting older, and that's part of getting older. You have the short-term memory loss, you start to forget things, no big deal, no problem. Now in stage 3, again, no dementia, it's mild cognitive decline, and in this stage, it includes increased forgetfulness, slight difficulty concentrating, decreased work performance, and people may get lost more often or have difficulty finding the right words. And at this stage, a person's loved ones will begin to notice a cognitive decline. And now the average duration is 7 years before onset of dementia. Now I remember in stage 3, there are things that was happening with my father. He was having a hard time with what tools to use, although he could still construct things and put things together, and he could comprehend and make sense of things, but he just could not remember the names of certain tools. And then traveling, another one. When he would ever travel, it just started to not make sense for him to take off his shoes, security clearance and checks, those checkpoints when you get on a plane before you're board. He didn't want to give up some of his money in his pocket, like some of these things that make sense. Just going outside to get the fresh air, to feel the sun, like some of that, it was hard for him to wrap his mind around that. Like, why would you do that? It's no big deal. But there were for sure signs of my dad in stage 3 going through some serious moments of forgetting names and places and stuff like that, having a hard time looking at a map to figure out where it was that he needs to go. And that was a common problem with him when he was getting near retirement. And one of his tasks sometimes was to go to certain locations, but these were places that he's been to so many times, but he'd have to refer back to the map. And he was having a hard time remembering the place, and then he would use the map, and that became a little bit of a struggle as well. Now, as we continue, we now enter stage 4. This is where it gets very, we were concerned. You start to get very, very concerned about what's going on with your loved one at stage 4. And this is the early stage. It's moderate cognitive decline. And in this stage, It includes difficulty concentrating, decreased memory of recent events, and difficulties maintaining finances or traveling alone to new locations. People have trouble completing complex tasks efficiently or accurately and may be in denial about their symptoms. They may also start withdrawing from family or friends because socialization becomes difficult. At this stage, a physician can detect clear cognitive problems during a patient interview and exam, and the average duration is 2 years. I've got a video here that I would like to play, and it clearly shows my father's behaviors have changed, and this is stage 4. So you'll see a man, because of the social setting here, my father withdraws from the conversation because now things have changed and he just doesn't feel confident or comfortable and has a hard time kind of understanding things a little bit. But just watch this and you'll see what I mean.
You know what Ford stands for?
It's one there, that big one right there.
How you doing?
That's a Ford.
Hey, man, how are you? All right. My dad? No, he's not. Yeah. Sid's here?
Yeah. He's having lunch right now.
I'm going in to see him when I come back in.
Okay, we're C-Wing.
Oh, cool,
Okay,
good.
you left. It's not having lunch now.
Is that great? I have another friend of mine, Ken, here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah?
When there's a sudden change in conversation, or there's a new person that enters the conversation, my dad will get a little reserved. Things will come up at that moment that my father doesn't completely understand, nor can he comprehend.
How do you like it?
What?
Oh, he likes it here. Yeah. Yep. Tell him, Ken.
What?
You're living a dream, right?
I'm okay.
There you go.
As you can see here, when he was asked, how does he like it, he wasn't so sure exactly what this man was referring to. So my father will then quickly resort to what he's familiar with, and that's one of his few stories. And in this particular conversation, he resorts to the Tough Kenneman story.
And then it's
Oh, that's great. Your dad's here. Gee.
exactly right.
Tough Kenneman.
Tough Kenneman.
Call that's right.
I'm Kenneth Keene. And I got
I've
that
noticed
over
that.
Now stage 5. In stage 5, it's the mid-stage, and there's moderately severe cognitive decline. People in this stage have major memory deficiencies and need some assistance to complete their daily activities, such as dressing, bathing, preparing meals, etc. Memory loss is more prominent and may include major relevant aspects of current lives. For example, people may not remember their address or phone number and may not know the time of day or where they are. Now, the average duration is 1.5 years, and you're in very deep now. Now, in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the behavior that you could see is definitely what you would find with somebody who's in stage 5. And here we are.
You think you're able to put your seatbelt on?
What's that?
This thing? Seatbelt?
Put that on here?
Yeah.
Just put it around that way.
Yeah, just wrap it around.
Up there.
And go some, no, not,
No? No?
no, not like that.
What?
Like this.
Like what?
Grab this. See this piece? This piece.
Over there, yeah?
Put it down, I guess. Stick it right in there.
Right there?
Yeah.
Just like that.
What that'll do is that'll protect us.
I didn't know it was that, but I thought you wanted to just put it down there somewhere. That's what that was, but I thought it would be a little different, so that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so now we're in stage 6. Again, it's the mid-stage. It's severe cognitive decline. And people in stage 6 require extensive assistance to carry out daily activities. They start to forget names of close family members and have little memory of recent events. Many people can remember only some details of earlier life. They also have difficulty counting down from 10 and finishing tasks. And incontinence, such as loss of bladder or bowel control, is a problem in this stage, as well as the ability to speak declines. Also, personality changes such as delusions, that being believing something to be true that is not, and also there's compulsions, repeating a simple behavior such as cleaning, or anxiety and agitation may occur. Average duration is 2.5 years. Now, I have a couple of video clips that show that my father's in stage 6, and you'll clearly see some of his behavior and be able to make the connection that with stage 6. So have a look at this.
Yeah, we're on the Walt Whitman Bridge, Dad.
What's that?
This is the Walt Whitman Bridge.
Walt Whitman Bridge?
Walt Whitman Bridge.
What's that?
It's a bridge that bridges New Jersey and Pennsylvania. People go from PA to New Jersey.
Pennsylvania, lottery. You heard that before, right?
Yeah, a million times.
Pennsylvania lottery.
Yes.
What is it?
It's another
I said that, and I just was saying that again, just being funny too. We are farmers, bum 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 bum. Tough Kennemon, bum 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 bum. You got that before too, right?
Yeah. Tough Kennemon. It's a location in Pennsylvania. It was a location that my father would visit with his pole truck when he worked for Pico. He was delivering utility poles. Well, one day, probably when he was about 60 years of age, late 50s, he went out to Tough Kennemon, PA. Right where he was parked, he had this big sign in front of him. It said Tough Kennemon. And while he was standing there, he was waiting for these contractors or other workers to show up, which they didn't show up until 2 hours later. Well, he was getting a little angry about the situation, and I guess sitting in the truck waiting for these guys, he's looking at the sign. It says Tough Kennemon. And he said, I thought to myself, I'm tough. My name's Ken. I'm a man. I'm Tough Kennemon. And these people in this town named the city after him because when these contractors, these workers or whatever showed up, finally, after 2 hours, my father gave them an earful, whatever he did, but gave him that nickname, and ever since then, it's stuck. Now it's part of his script. It's amazing.
You know that other portion I got all the time, Tough Kennemon?
Yep.
I told you that, and I told you when I got it, why.
Yes, you did.
At that place I was working for, all those ladies' houses. And they put it over there, Tough Kennemon. I told you that, right?
Yeah.
It was Tough Kennemon.
Yeah.
And I asked that lady, I saw that down over there. I was seeing her every day. She's always standing there. I asked her, you got that down there? You always call me Ken. And it said Tough Kennemon. Is that me or somebody else over here? No, that's you. Oh, yeah, that's me. Okay. Would you change that a little bit? You want me to change it? Yeah. To what? It's Tough Kennemon. Can you make it Tough Kennemon? I told her that. She said, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll make it Tough Kennemon. She was doing that too. Tough Kennemon. Tough Kennemon. Tough Kennemon. Tough Kennemon. Tough Kennemon. She was laughing and doing that too. And then she did change it. She went down there and she put it there. Tough Kennemon. Tough Kennemon.
Just like that. My father's version of this story would gradually change as he would descend deeper into the dementia. The worse off he became, the more realistic the story had become to him. Today, after 8 years had gone by, it has now been distorted and changed. I can't even tell you how many times, but he truly believes that that town was named after him, and he made a special request to the people living there to change it from Tough Kennemon to Tough Kennemon.
So now we're in stage 7. This is the last stage. It's very severe cognitive decline. This is the late dementia. People in this stage have essentially no ability to speak or communicate. They require assistance with most activities, such as using the toilet, eating, and oftentimes they lose psychomotor skills, for example, the ability to walk. Now, the average duration is 2.5. It's 2.5 years. And as of right now, my father's not there. He still has his independence, and he's able to do some things on his own. But I've seen through the many different stages that he's being stripped slowly of the independence that he once had. And well, it's just a matter of time before he enters stage 7. Not looking forward to it, but it's just the cycle of this, and it's not good. At some point in time, he's not going to be able to speak, and in that case, it's your job as the caregiver, as the loved one, to speak up for him. So, you know, it's not easy, but trust me, you become stronger along the way, and all the different stages that your loved one's going through, you're going through as well, and it's preparing you for these latter stages. Not to say that you will go on unscathed and be able to handle this like it's no problem whatsoever, because each new stage brings new challenges, and every stage has its own severity. And but you are definitely more prepared for each of the stages because of the stages, if that makes any sense. But now I want to make some suggestions to the caregivers, and maybe some things you'll find to be helpful, useful, and will help you get through your days caring for your loved one. Now, the one thing I started doing immediately when I found out that my father had dementia, frontal temporal lobe dementia, I started to research. Actually, I was researching before that, trying to figure things out. But when I learned that it was dementia, then I could, it was like a scope. I could dial in and focus on one thing and pick it apart and try to see the comparisons and what, how it's related to my father, and things that I could do to help combat or better handle some of these situations as they would arise. Because you're going through many behavioral changes with your loved one, and it can be a little overwhelming. So it's better to be informed and understand how to deal with these changes as they come to the surface. Now, research, Google search terms, Facebook groups, hospital support groups. These are all things that I took advantage of. And Google is like the biggest library in the world, and I'm sure you've heard of Google. So you put in any of the key terms, key phrases, and you will find what you're looking for, that's for sure. And there's an endless amount of information, and you could be on the computer for hours, days, just finding things out. But Facebook groups, the Facebook groups are great too. There's many out there, all different types. And if you're looking for one in particular, whether it's Lewy body, it's vascular, it's frontal temporal lobe, or Alzheimer's, there's a specific group for you. And everyone in these groups are experiencing something similar as to what you may be experiencing. And they're very helpful, and they're happy to answer your questions, and they show tremendous support. Now, you have your hospital support groups. Through the hospitals, my mother and I, and my family, we've learned of the support groups that are available, which are tremendous. See, the advantage that these support groups have over some of the Facebook groups is it's personal. I mean, you're there in front of people, and you get to really interact in a very personal manner, which I feel just gives you the edge. It could really take the edge off, and you know, it's a very personal experience, but it's another option. It's an alternative, and it's something else you should look into if you haven't already. But I find that to be very enjoyable, because you're sharing different experiences and stories, and sometimes it's even funny. Yeah, you get to share some funny moments, and it'll take some of that stress off your mind for however long the support group lasts, but very helpful. So I would suggest looking in, and start with the hospital. Call the hospital, the nearest hospital that specializes in brain dysfunction, and that have neurologists, and they usually have some information for you for the support groups available. Now, one of the biggest things, and if you haven't gone through this already, or you're going through it now, is patience. So I'm sure all of you out there can understand the patience that's required when trying to take care of a loved one that has dementia. So that is definitely one of the things that will be tested is your patience. Now, what I like to do is I try to prepare myself mentally before I get in the presence of my father, and try to clear my mind, leave work and negative thoughts outside at the door before you step in your loved one's world. I know for those who have a loved one in your home, it's a lot harder because it's harder to avoid some of that because you're under the same roof. But still, there are ways that you can create that space while still in their presence, but better prepare yourself mentally so that when there comes that time or that moment when they need you and they're there, you can handle it. So if that means stepping out front, sitting on the porch, going out back, catching some fresh air, going to another room, separate room, put on the radio, listen to music, or even make a phone call to that person that you can go to kind of vent and get some things off your chest. That's very important that you do that. So I like to use the analogy. It's kind of like the trash can. You can't keep filling the trash can up or else it's going to overflow. It's going to be a mess and it's just going to be one big catastrophe. So just try to keep emptying that trash. Keep emptying your can so that you can refill it. And believe me, it'll fill quick. But try to stay on top of that. If you stay one step ahead, you will be okay. I mean, you're going to have your moments. You're only human, that you're going to break down and you may say some things that you regret. But it's okay. It's expected. And I'd like to share actually a video, which you can see in this video. My patience is somewhat tested, and I kind of got quiet, so I really didn't, but please have a watch and you'll see what I mean exactly.
Plumbers, heard that right? We are plumbers, bum 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 bum. Top Kennemon, bum 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 bum.
I think I laughed at because I'm still amazed that you keep saying it and you still say it.
I said that before.
And I think it's, you're beating me down into submission.
I'm glad you're laughing now. I'm just being funny.
I know.
I tried that a lot of times. We are plumbers, bum 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 bum. I just said that other one too. I'm tough, Kennemon, bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. It was always funny, that portion. Bum 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 bum. It was always funny how it was going like that. We are farmers. Bum 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 bum. I said that other thing, and I said me. I'm tough, Kennemon. Bum 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 bum. That's what it was. Bum 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 bum.
That's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Yep.
Another suggestion that I have is interaction. Your interaction with your loved one is very important. But of course, like I said in the previous slide about patience and trying to mentally prepare yourself, if you can't do that, then your interaction is going to suffer. And, well, when your mind is right and you're there mentally and you're able to then interact in a way that's going to be very loving and supportive and you have that patience, I like to interact through conversation, games, maybe some outdoor activities, of course, music, dancing, singing, and some television. These are all great ideas that'll definitely be enjoyable, not just for your loved one, but for you as well. And but here you can see clearly in these two video clips of some of the things I like to do and how my father is very receptive to it. And I actually enjoy it myself. So have a look at this.
Here, go next to me.
What?
One more time.
What? Go down?
Look down.
Put this over here?
Yeah, put it over there.
And go down?
Yeah.
You gotta make it good.
Ready? Yeah. And breathe. When you do this, breathe. When I go out with it, I go. This one? 5. Give me a high 5. You did it. Yeah. Beat, ready?
That's your dance?
doesn't it?
Oh, it's got me. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. It's us.
It shows that. Yeah, that's us right there.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, because I can see I'm pushing my hand up like that, and it shows me on that like that, and it's you.
Me
I thought we were on there before a lot of other times.
See my hands?
Yep. Yep.
Something like that. Yeah. That's cool. I like that, Dad.
Yeah.
Now, another suggestion I have is touch. How you interact with your loved one. And touch has a lot to do with it. Now, of course, the different types of dementia and the different stages will have an impact on how receptive they are to your touch and your affection, your hugs, kisses, etc. But either way, I don't care. I'm a big believer in the affection and interacting in a loving manner, because even the most disgruntled, hardened person at whatever stage, whatever type of dementia, underneath all that, I think down at the soul, if you interact with them in a loving manner, they're definitely going to appreciate it. Whether it might not show at them at the time, but trust me, your presence, they'll be more receptive and appreciative of your presence there because of how you interact with them and the forms of the types of different touch that you give them, whether it's through words or through actions. You will be appreciated deep down. I know it. And that's just from my personal experience. I mean, who doesn't want to be touched or be acknowledged or be told that they're loved? And it's just an all-around good feeling. Now, with my father, when I do that, I give him hugs. I'll shake his hand. I look at him. I make that connection. I make that eye contact. And he loves it. He laughs. He smiles. He'll even say it back to me sometimes. And it really does relieve you of really the reality of what's going on as he's deteriorating. So that interaction, it actually will make you feel like everything's okay. So you should try it sometime. If you're not super touchy, well, maybe come out of your comfort zone or forget about your inhibitions and just step out and do something different, because you just might find one of the greatest gifts ever, and that simple change could be the thing that'll help you get through and carry you into the deeper stages, and it's worth it for sure. Now, the next would be distance. Now, as a caregiver, there are many things that you're expected to do, and there's a great deal of stress involved and responsibilities, and you have to stay strong throughout, though. And sometimes you need to recharge your battery and pull away and create that space between you and your loved one. Now, I know it's a little harder for those who have a loved one, someone with dementia, living under the same roof and as a full-time caregiver, because, of course, the space is now much closer between you and them. But if you can, just maybe step outside on the porch, go out back, maybe go in another part of the house, play some music, call a friend, do whatever it is that you need to do, but you need to sometimes pull away. Go to the park and go for walks. I used to do that myself. I used to just go for a walk, and I'll tell you what, just that walk alone would get me ready for the next few hours at least. And it really does wonders. It kind of opens up your mind. You forget about things for a while, and you need that. And it really makes a difference in how you perform as a caregiver. So create that distance. Think about yourself. You need to be strong for your loved ones, so you have to do what you need to for yourself to be the best you can be as a caregiver. Now, your health, again, it ties in with what I just mentioned. You need to be strong, and you have to think about yourself, because this is there's longevity in this. You have to be ready for the long haul. And for some people with certain types of dementia, they could be with that particular type of dementia for a decade or more, and it could really take a toll on you. Now, if you don't have like live-in assistance, and you don't have the support of any government assistance, or they're not in a residential home and they're with you all the time, of course you're gonna have to be strong. So the things that I like to do to stay strong is, and I'm not just talking about physically, I'm talking about mentally and emotionally. is exercise. You got to exercise your mind and your body, and you got to make those necessary lifestyle changes and create those healthy relationships, especially relationships with people who can identify with what you're going through, because you can feed off one another, and that type of support system will get you through. So that's why, like I was saying earlier, it's important to try to seek out those support groups that you'll find through the hospitals. And if you have that close interaction with someone who can relate, man, you have yourself a compadre, a co-pilot, a support system that'll definitely ride with you. And, you know, it's a great thing to have. But I like to go to the gym. I like to go to the gym, go on walks. I'll go outdoors with my girl. You know, we walk the dog, stuff like that. And try to read, research. I try to feed my mind as much useful information as possible, and not that poor quality crap that you're seeing on TV that'll really not give you anything. I mean, yes, entertainment's great. You need that too. You need a little bit of entertainment because you need to laugh some, but also you need to fill your mind and your body with the right nutrients, the right nutritional information to keep your mind fresh, keep it strong, and it'll help you stay on your toes, both mentally and physically. So, anyway, now we're coming at the end of this presentation. I hope this information that I had given you and shared was somewhat informative, and I hope I didn't forget too much. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and I just, either I don't have the knowledge, I still am learning myself, and I'm just giving you what I have found to be somewhat helpful in my life as a caregiver, as a son of a person that has frontal temporal lobe dementia. And I hope you can take away from this slideshow something. And if you have any questions, please, you can reach me here on the YouTube channel, send me personal messages, comments, and on Facebook too. Be sure to check out The Journey with Tough Kid Amon. We have a Facebook page, and excuse me, there I will reply to you promptly. So anyway, I thank you all for watching. I do appreciate your time. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share any of the content that you see here. And I hope you all have a great day, and be healthy, safe, and do the best that you can. Goodbye. Till next time.